Welcome to the Thyroid Fixer podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Amy, and we're diving deep into the world of hormones, especially for all you fierce women in perimenopause and menopause, and anyone dealing with hypothyroidism. If you're struggling with weight gain, you feel like shedding those pounds is an impossible feat. If you're dealing with plummeting energy levels, gut-wrenching fatigue, or a libido that seems to have left town, then you're in the right place. And don't even get me started on the hair loss. If these symptoms are sounding all too familiar, you found your tribe. Welcome, because my goal is to educate, empower, and shake up your world. I want you to embrace every inch of that badass woman that you truly are. So if you're ready to dive in and fix things, let's get started. So this is going to be a game changer for you, and you can probably hear the excitement in my voice. The latest introduction, the latest member of the family to the Fixer line is Metabolism Fixer. And this, oh my God, I formulated this just for all my people out there that need to lose weight, that need help in the weight loss department, that can't lose weight no matter what they do, that feel like they have a slow metabolism, and that might be thinking of trying all those peptides out there, you know, the Beverly Hills soccer mom drug of choice for weight loss peptides. Or even if you're on them already and you're like, man, these are really expensive and I'm still not losing weight, add in Metabolism Fixer. Here's what I did. I took the power of T2, which increases your basal metabolic rate while you are sitting there watching Netflix. You're burning fat while you're watching Netflix. I combined it with a very unique patented ingredient called Suppressa. Suppressa has multiple clinical trials backing its efficacy in reducing your appetite, decreasing snacking, and providing way more control over your food intake. It is amazing. We also see improved emotional well-being, just decreased food cravings all around, reduced hunger, and weight management. Add on top of that, we have green tea extract, we have purple forest purple tea extract, both of which affect the metabolism in a very positive way without the jitters of normal fat burning supplements out there from the 1980s and 90s, right? The ones that made you feel like you're having a heart attack. You will not have that in any of my supplements, Thyroid Fixer or Metabolism Fixer. But Metabolism Fixer, ooh, yeah, we kicked it up a notch. It is in powder form, so you can drink it through your day. It's going to flavor your water. We got orange crush and refreshing citrus. I love them both. It is going to keep you under control all day long. So you throw a couple scoops in your water bottle in the morning, throw a scoop or two in your water bottle throughout the day. You will have fat burning and appetite control the entire day for what? An eighth of a price of the peptides? Oh my God, you can't go wrong. So grab some Metabolism Fixer today. Please let me know how you do on it. I am super excited for you. Super excited. Chris, I'm super excited to have you on because you're just a freaking genius when it comes to many different topics, but specifically in the field of longevity, kind of, you know, spreading our fingers out into the biohacking world, which I'm assuming that's why you decided to do the Longevity Summit coming up, right?
Yeah, well, Dr. Amy, thank you for having me. I'm excited to jump into this. I would like to say recently and burgeoning longevity expert. I think, you know, there's a long way to go. I did interview 55 experts in longevity, including you.
But that makes you an expert. Did you know that?
Right?
Yeah, when you top 25 interviews of experts, that makes you an expert.
Wow. So I'm, you said 25, so I'm double plus.
You're double. You're
I like
platinum. Yeah.
You know, and you're in the space we talked about before we got on. We're doing so much research. We're having interviews with so many amazing people. We're constantly learning. There's so much to learn. Let's throw out some like interesting data.
Okay.
In 1950, medical information doubled every 50 years, 50 years. Today, medical information doubles every 73 days, right?
Oh,
so it's double and then quadruple and then tuple, whatever that is. So 16 times in a year, you have 16 times as much medical information. in 1 year. Back then it was double every 50 years. So our job is to try and keep up kind of with, let's just slice out the piece that's relevant to longevity and in your case, like specific to thyroid and everything that's impacted by that. And so, yeah, we've got a lot to keep up with. There's one part that's like, yeah, I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of research, a lot of white papers, and I do have an expertise, and that expertise is basically gone tomorrow. And I got more work to do tomorrow. So, but I love it. And you and I were talking, like, we love it because we get to learn so much information and have great conversations with awesome people like you.
Right. And then we can apply it to our own life, kind of see how it works, and then spread the word to everyone else. Like, hey, I figured something out. This actually works. And then we can help the masses. So what is longevity, though? We hear this term so much, so often. What would be your own description of longevity?
So my answer is kind of shifting, right? And some of that shift is from interviewing these 55 experts. I've always thought that I wanted to live to 125. Like, I don't know when I got the number. I don't know where, like, was I 14? Was I 6? Whatever. Right. Why 125? I don't know. Just a nice round number, multiple of 5. But I've always thought 125 was a good target. And so in some sense, 7 years ago, maybe I would have said, well, longevity is just, get to 125. And by the way, in my mind, 125 wasn't going to be that pretty. Right. Like 125 was going to be like eking across that line. Happy birthday. And, and barely that. I can't blow out my candles. Right. Right. Like, so, which was going to be like a 1, a 2, and a 5. So I wouldn't be able to blow out 3 candles in my mind. And I think the medical community, I kind of describe it, we're in the middle of this quantum shift where the medical community is aware that longevity and health span and lifespan is shifting and getting extended. Now, having said that, we'll get into this, but I'll lead forward again. I love throwing out data. One of the things that I asked all the experts, and you will know this because I asked you this, is how long do you intend to live and how long can humans live?
Right.
And something fascinating. So we aggregated all the data. Only 3 of the 55 experts gave the same number.
Okay.
Now think about that. If you believe humans can live to, let's just say 120, right? Because we have Jean Clement who she got to 122.
Right.
Why isn't that your goal? And the reason is even these experts, and I don't remember your particular answer, even these experts can't separate living longer from living infirmed and in a debilitated state. And that's not a knock on the experts. That's just how extreme this association is, right? Think about that. I believe humans can live to 120, and that doesn't interest me, right? As a longevity expert.
Right.
And I think we're shifting that. And Dr. David Sinclair's book, Lifespan, is shifting that. And even Mark Hyman's book, shifting that and actually kind of a plead or a lobby to the medical community to start thinking about how we invest in the diseases of aging and actually pushing us to invest in aging, which actually solves the diseases of aging instead of the individual diseases of aging, right? And those are Alzheimer's, arthritis, cardiovascular disease, cancers. And there is a mindset, right? So we have those as different investments. I think a lot of people think like, well, if we could just erase cancer, that would dramatically extend our lives. But it turns out, let's just say we have this magic wand and we can get rid of all cancers. It only extends our life by 5 or 7 years because the next disease of aging steps in its place. And if we were to really address aging, right, take that investment dollar in all of those diseases and throw it at aging, we'd actually be solving all of those diseases of aging. And that would be a wise thing to do.
Well, yeah, no, I totally agree. And do you think that is even possible? Or wait, before you answer that, let me also rephrase. Do you think it's possible if we had no interference by big pharma and the government? Because we have to add that in, because I don't think it's possible because you will always be shut down. I think there's a cure for cancer now. Even high dose vitamin C, which I mean, you can speak on. I think that helps tremendously, but it's not in mainstream medicine. They want you to do the chemo. So do you think it's possible without interference?
Well, I think if you look at David Sinclair's work, right, and even what he promotes, and not really from the perspective of I'm promoting my company that does this, he actually takes supplements, and he actually takes resveratrol as one, and he'll put it in kind of a classic yogurt that he likes to make himself. And so there's opportunities for products here. There's opportunities for pharma to sit in here. And I think we will end up a situation when you think about Dr. David Sinclair's ultimate argument, right? Can we live longer? Can we live a lot longer? Dr. Amy, we can, as you know, we can take any one of your cells that's live and active. We can take that DNA out and we can make a clone, and we can make a baby. I guess it wouldn't be Dr. Amy at that point. It would just be a baby Amy.
Baby Amy.
And so everything that's available to the information to make you younger or to make a baby you exists in every cell in your body. Now, how do we get that to activate, right? How do we slow down the process of aging, and how do we reverse it? Like, these are in our mind kind of levers that we can pull. And if you think that those are things that can occur, they're probably going to happen with supplementation, even if the supplementation is one pill, right? And then so big pharma has a role to play in this, because they're really going to be driving the research and proving these processes out. So I think that we can get there, and I think that the system that we have in place is actually interested in us getting there. But yeah, if we solve the disease of aging, there's going to be some challenges. Like, there's going to be a lot less cancer drugs sold. There's going to be a lot less, Alzheimer's sold. There's going to, like, each one of these things is going to be detrimental. But thus goes progress sometimes.
So when you were interviewing all these experts about living longer, my answer, well, I know my answer was because I always say this, I don't want to live to a certain number, just like you alluded to, 125, 100, whatever, and be decrepit. If I make it to 85 or 90 and I'm a badass and I'm active and I look, feel, and perform at the highest level that I possibly can at that age, I'm not going to be running marathons, but I don't now anyways. I like to throw around some weights, I like to, still ski, do that. That's how I want to enter the latter part of my life. So with everyone that you interviewed, is that possible? Not just because when we say longevity, that's where I get hung up. And I think people get hung up is they think longevity equals length of time, 100, 110, 125. But longevity is so much more than that. Like you alluded to, it's about living your best life to a certain number.
Yeah, I think if we change it to, all right, Dr. Amy, if you had the same mental capacity that you have today, and you had the same physical capacity, or better, but we'll just go the same as you have today, and you carried that through to 120, would you be interested in living 120? I think you already kind of answered that. It's like, as long as I'm firing on all cylinders, right? Or at least, I don't know, 5 out of the 6 cylinders. Like, maybe, okay, if one cylinder, if I got a little limp, okay, that's fine, right? But it needs to be a little limp, not like decrepit. So I think reframing the question and then the debate is, can we do that? And I think it is. And one of the best kind of analogies, I think, for the life that most people in reference to longevity would like to have is the candle analogy, right? You've got a candle flame. It burns bright and the same size all the way until the wick is gone, and then it's out. Like, one data point that I read was that 20% of our current lives is spent in some sort of decrepitude, right? We're in some sort of decline. Not all 20% of it is something that you're like, okay, this is unsustainable for me, I just want to quit. But 20% of it is in decline. And I think a candle flame, you're talking like, I don't know, 1% is in decline. If 3% of my life was in decline, we might start be getting in the right realm. Although, if I'm living to 120, 3% starts to mean a lot, right? Well, I guess that's 3.6 years. So 4 years-ish. Maybe that's okay, right? That you don't want it to be this long, drawn out process. And yeah, I do think that we can do that. You think that medical information is doubling every 73 days right now. That doesn't include AI. Right? Because that's a recent number, and AI hasn't even really been like, that's not in that data point. And ironically, I used AI to calculate in 10 years, medical, if we're on the same slope that we've been, it took 50 years to double in 1950. Now it's 73 days to double information. If you progress that out, it's every 15 minutes, right?
Oh my God.
Medical information will double every 15 minutes. And you throw it in AI, it's like all of those. I think one of the benefits of AI is going to be like all of those, I don't know, 90 tests that we had to do because we just didn't know. AI is like, those are probably useless. Focus on these. And so not only is the information doubling faster every 15 minutes, but that information is actually better and has a bigger brain behind it.
True. Very true. And there's even the stat that doctors are told in med school. And now obviously this has changed based on what you're saying about that medical information changing so quickly. Doctors are even told that 50% of what you just learned over these 4 years will be completely obsolete in 2 to 3 years. So half of what they learned will be gone out the window. You don't even do it anymore in just a few short years into their practice. So I think that correlates very closely with what you're saying about all this new information, even about biohacking, longevity, and the space that we're in outside of the conventional medicine system, in that, you have to keep on top of it because there's always new things that you can be doing. And yes, it can get overwhelming at times for the general population, like, oh my God, another biohack, another tool, another expert. But that's where people like you and I come in, and you with the Longevity Summit, you're breaking it down by really honing in on these top experts and saying, give it to us straight. What can we actually do that is not, 50 grand to implement, that the average person can do to extend their life and improve their quality of life at the same time?
Yeah. And that's one of the great outcomes of the Longevity Summit. I was able to aggregate a lot of data. I think if we just put a pause right now for your current audience and where we are today, right? Because where we are today, still, there is some decrepitude that's probably going to happen without progress. I just think the progress is going to happen a lot faster. Somebody might be asking, okay, well, why should I try and live longer? And I think the answer is because you want to be alive and in good enough shape to take advantage of the technologies that are coming, right? So there's a concept called the terminal velocity of aging, which says for every day we live, the medical community figures out how to extend our life by more than 1 day, right? And when that happens, there will be somebody, and I believe this to be true, there will be somebody who is the last person to die of old age. And it would suck to be that person, although they wouldn't know, right? So maybe it doesn't suck to be that person, right? But it would be nice to be the person right behind that, or like relative to the finish line. That person didn't make it. I want to make it across that finish line because I can take advantage of these these cutting edge medical technologies they're growing hearts in labs, right? In preparation. So for each of these interviews, I prepared at least 1 hour before, and then the interviews tended to be about an hour. In one of them, I was looking at stem cells, and just this kind of most fascinating study. They took the heart of a rat, and they actually basically used enzymes to get rid of all of the muscle material on this. So they just had this kind of translucent heart-shaped heart, right? That didn't have any muscle on it, and they poured stem cells on it. Not only did the stem cells figure out that they needed to become heart muscle cells, they started beating, right? So you so you got rid of all these enzymes and, to get rid of all the muscle, and then you throw stem cells and they become muscle, and then they start beating. Like, we have a sophisticated system that we just need to tap into. And it's exciting. And interestingly, stem cells, one of the limitations, I think, that really came out of this Longevity Summit that I don't know, you're looking for kind of two things: the magic bullet, and then, the death nuclear bomb. And I would say that although there are solutions, that stem cells are some of the problem that we've got to solve as we really start thinking about longevity.
So that obviously is one of probably the biggest surprises that you've had from interviewing all these experts. Give me some more. Like, what are the other really fascinating things that you learn from interviewing everyone?
Well, and just to dive into that a little bit more, I interviewed two stem cell experts, one from the perspective of, hey, how do we get your own body to release more stem cells so that you heal and repair faster, right? Because
Right.
stem cells are the thing that repair. As an example, every muscle cell in your body gets replaced about every 3 months. So about 4 times a year, every muscle cell in your body is. And by the way, just a little tangent. When we're younger, our body does a great job of taking an old muscle cell, breaking it apart, using those amino acids to rebuild that muscle cell. As we get older, we're not as good at that, which sounds like, oh my God, we're going to lose muscle mass, which you will, but you can make up for it by eating enough protein, right? You need to eat the right protein. And it's not just protein, you need to eat the right amino acids in that protein, which tends to be animal based. I know there may be a lot of vegans out there, or you have to spend so much time focusing on protein. It's hard to stomach. That's kind of funny. So stem cell, hey, let's release them so that our body heals faster. So that was one approach. The other one is like, let's get some stem cells out of your body, let's grow them and let's inject them, right? So this is stem cell injections.
Yep.
One of the things that came out is stem cells are the things that repair your body. Typically, those stem cells come from red marrow in our bones. That red marrow shrinks with age. Now, you can imagine that if where our stem cells are coming from eventually evaporates, that's a problem. Not only do you not have the oil to change your car, you don't have the mechanic to actually change the oil in your car. And so eventually the car is just going to stop.
Right.
Now, there are potential solutions, right? The Dr. Joy actually will do stem cell injection. So maybe we just need some sort of system where we're, like a dialysis system, or ultimately it may become a big pharma pill, right? Where we can take it and it actually kind of regenerate stem cells. But that was kind of the nuclear bomb of longevity, meaning that has to be solved. Because if we cannot replace our cells, then they stop replacing and they just deteriorate. And so that was a big one for sure.
Okay, wait. Yeah, let's stay there for a second, because with stem cells in that world, just like you said, there's an option for, and I'm going to ask you a question surrounding this, possibly a lower cost option for supplements that cause your body or stimulate the body to produce more of their own stem cells. And then you have the really big expensive treatments that, to my knowledge, there's only a couple places in the US that do like the real stem cell treatment. Otherwise, you got to go to Mexico or Costa Rica or something like that to get, the true real stem cell treatment. So a couple questions folded into that. Number one, do you think that it is possible to create a supplement herb protocol that is on the lower ticket end, although it'll still be an investment, but it's not tens of thousands of dollars, that can cause our body to produce our own stem cells? And then the second question is about actually getting a stem cell treatment. Is it true, based on everyone the experts on stem cells that you interviewed for the Longevity Summit, that we're really going to have to leave the US to get proper treatment?
Yeah, I think at some point we'll be able to stay here, and I think there's probably some value. So Dr. Joy does do stem cells here in Houston. I think she's in California. And that was a fascinating interview diving into stem cells. I actually got the book. This is Christian Drapeau.
Yeah, that's what I was looking over there. I was like, I have it right on the top of my stack over there, the stem cell code. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so Stem Regen is the product. Fascinating interview, right? So again, by the way, the summit is February 26th through March 3rd. It's free to attend. I know that we're going to end up with a link in the show notes. You just need to give your email and your name, and then you're in and you can attend all these. And just to share, the way the summit works is release 7 to 8 videos per day over the 7 days. And they're just released en masse. Like, you don't have to earmark 1 p.m. I get to watch this one. Like, if you wanted to see Christian Drapeau, which I would highly recommend, you don't have to like allocate one particular time. You just need to be available that day and watch it. If you're not available, and we're all busy, so that may be the case, for $100, you get access to all of these videos at your leisure, right? It's 45 plus hours of longevity experts. And so Christian has put together, as you know, a kind of formula of, he really started with an algae that was having really strong benefits for people. identified that a component of that algae was actually helping people release stem cells, and then said, well, maybe there's more stuff out there, and kind of traveled the world. This is kind of a classic story. What is the herb or spice that people in whatever, also just make up something, Papua New Guinea, use whenever people aren't feeling well? Well, that probably has some benefits. Throw that in the lab. Oh, look, stem cells come up. And one of my questions was, well, how do you know that it's not just stimulating the same thing? And I love this science geeky stuff. With one component, you could look at how the stem cell release peaked, and with another component, it would peak at a different time, right? So the time horizon for the different stem cell peaks were different, which is really a good indicator that they're stimulating a different pathway for stem cell release. And then he had another one, some other components that will actually shove those stem cells into the actual material where they need to be utilized. So he could actually see that the stem cells would decrease with this component, but then when you took tissue samples, the stem cells had increased inside those tissue samples. So fascinating research. So yeah, to answer your question, I believe that there is a lower cost option for getting your body to release its own stem cells. Now, by the way, the red marrow, you're like, well, I don't want to drain that red marrow faster. That's not how it works, right? That red marrow, it deteriorates over time, shrinks over time. You're just causing it to produce more in that moment. It's not a fixed number per se.
Right. And then, yeah, my understanding, I spoke with Christian at an event, and my understanding is as well that you can almost, depending on what you're going through at that particular point in time, let's say you have a surgery and you want to super heal, or you were just injured and you want to super heal, you can take more to really kind of kick your body into high gear into producing those stem cells, because we know that stem cells do heal. And even, looking at my dad, he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, went through conventional treatment. 1 year later, it came back aggressive, and they told him, now this is the extreme example, but I'm using it to tie it together. They told him that he had to have a stem cell transplant, which we used to call bone marrow transplant, which is now we call it stem cell transplant, where they put him through chemo. They killed basically his immune system, took the stem cells out. I forget whether it was before or after, spun him up, re-injected him after they destroyed his immune system. And that kicked his own body into gear to kill the cancer. Otherwise, they said we would just be doing salvage chemo, meaning you might get a year or two and that's it. The cancer is going to spread. It's going to be aggressive. You're done. So he opted, it was a rough procedure, but he's cancer-free and has been for 5-6 years, and actually feels like he doesn't get sick often. He heals really quickly, even though he's 77 years old. So you can see from that extreme case what stem cells can do. They can kill cancer. They can heal you. They can support your immune system. So if we can do that on a smaller scale, through whether it's taking a supplement or through, doing our own autologous donation and having it injected back into us here in Mexico, I think that's phenomenal. I think it's a whole new way to up-level our health.
I think if you look at kind of maybe traditional medicine, and in fact, that is traditional medicine, but I feel like it's the next stage, which is stem cell. And then you start talking about, CRISPR technology, where you're actually doing gene editing. I think that's kind of this is the direction that we're moving in. I feel like stem cells on the way to gene editing. Our understanding of stem cells continues to grow, and it's just a powerful aspect of our physiology.
That's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, now give me some more surprises from the summit that you learned. Yeah.
So, well, let me talk a little bit about why I did the summit. Right. Because I think it's a little kind of crazy story. In fact, if 7 months ago, Dr. Amy, if you had said, Chris, you need to do a summit and you need to interview 55 people, and 3 of those people need to be leaders in the biohacking and longevity space. And we're going to name Dave Asprey, right? The father of biohacking. He coined the phrase, and a lot of your audience is probably familiar with him, but they're probably, if they're not, they're familiar with Bulletproof Coffee, right? He created Bulletproof Coffee. The next one would be Ben Greenfield. I think lesser known outside of longevity and biohacking space, but unbelievable wealth of knowledge.
Yeah,
and then crazy. Dr. Gundry, right? A four-time New York Times bestseller, former practicing pediatric thoracic heart surgeon, a career you don't leave, right? Just frankly, because it's so lucrative. There's no place else to go if that's important, and it usually is. But he realized he could deliver more value. If you had said, Chris, that's your assignment, I would have said, Dr. Amy, I'm the kind of guy who likes to set himself up for success, not failure. I don't know how I'm going to go from 7 months ago to here on the other end and have that done. And yet here I did. I accomplished it. I got to meet amazing people like you. I got to interview all of these people, and we ended up putting together this amazing summit. So that's amazing. I just didn't think that I would be able to put it together. And honestly, when I approached the company and say, I'd like to host one of these things, they were like, you're going to need to interview between 35 and 40 people. And frankly, I was like, yeah, I can probably get 25. We'll see what happens. But I more than doubled it. So I guess I'm double the expertise and double the interviewer.
Heck yeah.
Today.
The more info, the better. But those are some top dogs. Like I kind of feel special being amongst those names in your summit, because no, really, I mean, they are the top dogs in this industry. They have researched their asses off in this world of, I guess we can call it biohacking, but health, nutrition, longevity, biohacking. They have research. They have done the work to gain the knowledge that they have.
Well, at this point, people are like, okay, great. Why were you even interested in doing a longevity summit? Because I did kind of approach this company, and I did kind of was looking for, hey, kind of long and short. I met them. They're like, hey, you could be a sponsor of health summits. That sounds interesting. You could speak at health summits. Like, that's been kind of our best marketing strategy. And then I've always thought, be at the front of the class. Like, the most value you're going to get in a networking event or whatever, be in front of the class. So I'm like, well, what does it take to do a summit, to be a host? And the reason I ended up in this space is maybe even crazier than the story that I just shared with you, right? I manufacture a molecule, and I've been manufacturing a molecule since 1991. And that molecule is this molecule. So I'm holding up a model. If you're just listening, imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So we have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. That molecule was discovered in 1985. The guys who discovered it won the Nobel Prize in 1996, and I started manufacturing it in 1991. The molecule's amazing. It performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. It makes better inks, better tires, better batteries, better photocells. This is where people were like, I thought this was a longevity summit. Never in my life was I thinking, if there's a battery, what components of that battery should I be consuming on a daily basis? The story gets a little worse first, because of the shapes on the exterior of this soccer ball cage are reminiscent of benzene. Benzene is a known toxic. It's known to be carcinogenic. They actually thought this molecule would be toxic, and they put it in a toxicity study. Actually, my lab provided the material. My lab's mentioned in that original study. And instead of being toxic, the test subjects, in this case, it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. The single longest longevity experimental result in history. Now, that was the publication that kind of shifted me from being a happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist, yes, there is such a thing, that's me, into getting into the supplement space. And really, my business partner and I tried not to get into it. Like, you know the space. It's got, we'll say, it's got challenges, right? There's challenges in the space. Very different than delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world, which we still do today. And so we really kind of tried not to get into the space. And frankly, back to like 7 years ago, if you said 7 years ago, Chris, you are going to be in the longevity space, you are going to have a supplement on the market, I would again said, Dr. Amy, I don't know how I'm getting from there to here, because I don't like, what's the path? How does that happen? And then ultimately it did happen. Really, what drove it is a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting, taking it on a daily basis. And our phone starts ringing 10 times a day. And, a business, the supplement industry that we kind of tried not to get into for like 4 years, really kind of hey, we can deliver a lot more value. We know from the supplement industry that people are going to get into this and they're going to do it wrong. We've been running a lab since 1991. We know how to do it right. So let's actually get into the business. And that, my first role, really kind of in a marketing role, first is like, okay, is a 90% extension of life anything? I didn't really know, because remember, I wasn't in the longevity space. It sounds like a lot. I don't go to, GNC and pick up something that says, oh, this will increase your life by 90%. Right.
So, because you're going to call BS on it. You're going to be like, yeah, right. Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out the next best way to live longer is calorie restriction. If you restrict the calories you consume by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. No one likes to sign up for that.
Not fun. So can we just take some carbon 60 instead?
Exactly. Right. Just take the molecule. So, and that's only a 30% extension of life. And then I start digging into, okay, what else is out there? What are other opportunities? What is the stem cell? How does that impact longevity? Our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning. They report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. So I start, okay, well, what else helps sleep? Why might it help sleep? And I'll talk about the potential mechanisms here in a second. But we ended up we have like a 20-person survey study on sleep, where we queried people. They for 10 days before they started the product, they answered the questions about their sleep. 10 days on the product, 10 days off the product, and then 10 days back on the product. And 100% of them reported improvements in sleep when they were on the product, right? So we're actually kind of a weird supplement company doing research and driving research in the realm of the particular supplement. Now, when I share that story, this goes back to longevity, right? When I share that story that the rats lived almost twice as long, I typically get two responses. The first is, well, if they're from New York, they're like, why would we want rats to live longer? Like, you are a horrible individual, Chris. You need to bury this research. We do not want rats living longer.
Okay, there's one.
And the other one is like we discussed, why would I want to live longer? And I don't want to belabor that, but you change the question. Can you live healthier? If you can live healthier, are you then interested in living longer? Mm-hmm. The next question is, like, why might this be extending life? And the medical community tends to think about longevity in terms of an oxidative or an inflammation challenge, right? So we're experiencing oxidative stress, or we're experiencing inflammation, which even has been called inflammaging.
Right.
And interestingly enough, our product addresses both of those. From an antioxidant perspective, there's an ad hoc study out on the web, 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. There's a peer-reviewed published research that shows it to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So check on that box. And I'm actually going to come back to that, because there's an amazing theory, the BOSS theory, buffering oxidative stress system, that I'll touch on. And then in terms of inflammation, the FDA has really strict guidelines with inflammation, because it turns out those same diseases of aging, arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancers, are diseases of aging. And if you're talking about inflammation, the FDA says, well, you're talking about diseases. And I think everybody has a big picture. I can't come on here and say, we solve cancer. Like, right. I'm not saying we do, but like, I can't do that because we don't have the research behind it.
Right.
So what the FDA does allow us to say is that our product addresses inflammation, at least as it's associated with exercise-induced inflammation. So we've all had a tough workout. Maybe we've walked longer than we have before and felt that inflammation the next day. The FDA allows us to say that it addresses that inflammation. We can't say we address any other type of inflammation. I do like to kind of point out an anti-inflammatory diet typically associated with the blue zone people. Those people tend to live longer. They tend to have reduced incidences of stroke, reduced incidences of heart attacks. We fit perfectly in that diet. And then, I'm sorry, this is getting a little long-winded, but I want to share this because starts to get really fascinating. We have testimonials from head to toe. Hair growing faster. Yep. The toe one that I think is amazing is a guy that kind of is in our circle. When he was 5 years old, a crab bit his toe and split his toenail.
Okay.
His toenail healed at 65. after he started taking our product.
Oh my God. So
6
literally head
years.
to toe, like no
Yeah,
joke.
literally head to toe. My wife broke her toe once. It healed really fast, right? But that, I feel like that's a little more, I like binary. Cracked toenail, no longer cracked toenail. Like that's very binary for me, and I like that. What explains head to toe, right? And remember, our most consistent testimonial, people take it in the morning, report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Actually, better sleep could do this because sleep is your restorative and healing part of your day. And we know that sleep is good for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. That could explain it.
Right.
But it turns out there's a better theory. And again, we call it the BOSS, buffering oxidative stress system. So we know from peer-reviewed published research. So we call this molecule for human consumption ESS60. And you mentioned C60. We really think of C60 as for industrial applications. Like I mentioned, the inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. ESS60 is C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption.
Okay. So
we
should call it carbon 60, right? That's the more.
Well, C60 and carbon 60 are really industrial in our, like, if you think about the manufacturing process, which we do a lot, we've been manufacturing it since 1991. That process is an industrial process. It's how do you get it into what we call ESS60? Really, there's a lot of reasons that we ended up doing this, mostly to keep the consumer safe and to keep them with a high quality product.
Okay.
What we know from peer-reviewed published research is that this ESS60, this soccer ball shaped molecule, gets into the mitochondria, right? That's really important. The mitochondria, powerhouse of every cell, it actually is the thing that takes the food that gets through our stomach into our bloodstream and converts it to ATP, right? ATP is the energy source. There's between 5 and 5,000, although I was doing some research recently, a typical neuron has 2 million mitochondria in it, right? 2 million per neuron. It's crazy. It's the powerhouse of every cell. Like most things that generate power. Think about a car going down the road, there's exhaust. Think about a power plant, there's a smokestack, there's exhaust coming out of it. Yep. There's negative byproducts. In the case of mitochondria, it's actually reactive oxygen species. The mitochondria has inherent 2 antioxidants, glutathione and melatonin, to manage those reactive oxygen species. And so now we believe that this ESS60 molecule acts like a paddy wagon. So let me give you this kind of analogy. Bourbon Street, end of Mardi Gras, which actually just ended right on Tuesday. At the end of the day, you've got these drunk reactive oxygen species running around and breaking windows and tearing down light poles and just causing problems. And the police, the glutathione and the melatonin, come in and handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street.
Right.
But when they're overwhelmed or they're too busy, right, what do you do then? That's when these reactive oxygen species run around our bodies and do damage. I picture them like little bumper cars, just damaging everything. Well, that's where this ESS60 molecule, resident in the mitochondria, we've known since the 90s, it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. So now it's holding these reactive oxygen species like a paddy wagon. Okay. So that when that mitochondria can replenish the glutathione or the melatonin, it can handcuff itself to it and get it out of the body. So that's the BOSS system. That is the reason that I've gone down this path of longevity. All of this story, by the way, is in my book, which we haven't even mentioned.
I know. We haven't even gotten there yet. Live longer and better. So you got the Longevity Summit and you got a book on living longer and better. What made you write the book too? Did you do that before the summit? Obviously, because it's out. Yes.
Well, literally, as I was starting to do the interviews for the summit, the book came out. And I really haven't had a chance to even talk about the book until now. Like I'm in the process of promoting the summit. You got to also talk about the book.
You just really go together, though. I mean, it's perfect. It's a perfect match.
Yeah, and really, the book fits into the same scenario of, hey, you're a happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist. Soon you're going to be a longevity expert. I don't know how that's going to happen. You're going to write a book. I don't know how that's going to happen. And I have a co-author. This is kind of amazing. Dr. Jerome Corsi is a 2-time New York Times #1 bestseller, right? So just to get on the New York Times bestseller list is a monumental task to get to #1. And he's done it twice. I'm so privileged to have him. And he is one of the interviews. He's written political books. He's written ecological books. He's written all sorts of books and so I brought him in to let's have a really kind of theoretical discussion about what's going to happen if we live longer. And
Right.
so that was an amazing discussion with him as well. And that's included in the Longevity Summit.
So, with all of your knowledge from writing the book and doing the research for the book and interviewing these top experts in longevity, can you break it down? Can you give us the top 3 secrets or tips that people could actually take away? Obviously, they can dive more into the book, more into the summit to learn more. But what are 3 secrets or tips that you found that can actually help us with living longer better?
So I did ask every expert, as you know, because you got this question. I said, hey, could you give us 2 to 3 mindsets, protocols, habits? Let's call them shortcuts, because everybody likes shortcuts for longevity. And we actually aggregated the data. And I'm going to share just this kind of brief story.
Yeah.
33% mentioned sleep, 52% mentioned exercise. And I would actually break that into exercise and movement. Right. And there's a particular kind of psychological reason. If exercise is daunting to you, don't think about exercise, just move. Just get out and move. 52, the same amount that mentioned exercise, mentioned diet, and 46 mentioned mindset. And I just kind of laid into sleep and how important that is. 46 mentioned mindset, 33 mentioned sleep. And at first it was like, maybe the experts got it wrong, right? Because sleep is so important. We don't have any doubts about that. But then a couple of stories came up and really it dawned on me, if you don't have the mindset to change your sleep, if you don't have the mindset to change your exercise or movement, if you don't have the mindset to change your diet, your nutrition, those habits, none of it matters, right? Because let's be realistic, you'll improve sleep for a little while and then you'll get off of it. You'll improve your exercise or movement for a little while and you'll get off of it. So the mindset is one of the most important. And in the Longevity Summit, I interviewed my best friend, Dr. Patrick Wanis, is a human behavior expert. And that interview was about mindset and changing that mindset so that you can, one, enjoy the benefits of making these changes, stick to the benefits of making these changes, and then hopefully enjoy the benefit of being across the finish line of the terminal velocity of aging.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that because I preach that to my clients, my audience as well. If you believe that you are going to stay sick, then you're going to stay sick. If you believe you won't lose weight, you won't lose weight. So yeah, it comes down to mindset. So I love that actually came out as a stat. And I think those three secrets are amazing because they're all things that we can work on, again, without dropping 50 grand. You don't need to go out and spend a boatload of money on biohacking tools. You just need to change your mindset, sleep, and move. Bam.
Yep.
Done. Mic drop right there.
And eat a little bit better, right? Just eat foods that you recognize before you cook them.
Right. Exactly. So Chris, thank you so much for coming on. We are going to put the link to the summit in the show notes. Now, if you happen to be listening to this down the road after the summit is already passed, they can still jump onto the site and purchase the summit, correct?
So we're working on making that happen. The long answer is that will be true. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but absolutely we'll make that available.
Well, if you're listening to this in real time, then click the link, sign up for the summit, try to listen every single day. But like Chris said, if you can't, you just buy it. And then we'll also put a link to his new book that you can go grab. Where is it at, Chris? Amazon, your site?
It is on Amazon. I want to share a little bit about the book. I know we're running a little long, but I think it's worth it.
Go for it.
The link is myvitalc.com/Dr. Amy, right? So DRAMIE, Dr. Amy. When they go there, we do have the ESS60 molecule, right? That's the soccer ball shaped molecule in 3 oils: olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. We always recommend the olive oil for 2 reasons. We're a research-based organization. All the research is in olive oil. And the next is we get a higher concentration of the ESS60 molecule in the olive oil. One other note, you can get on subscription and save 25%. Do that. You can cancel at any time. Our customer service team has 855-star reviews on Google. They are not trained to talk you out of it. Just take advantage of that discount, please. Also, you can find the book on Amazon. It's $20. On our website, it's $20.
Nice.
On our website, you can get a signed copy. The signed copy is an extra $10. 100% of that $10. So all $10, and if you want both signatures from Dr. Jerome Corsi and I, it's $15. All of that goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember there was a movie, Sound of Freedom, recently about child sex trafficking. I happened to see him speak before that movie came out. It moved me. And so 100% of the signature fees is going to Operation Underground Railroad.
Wow. That's big. Well, thank you for doing that. Thank you for being an advocate. And we will put all those links in the show notes. Chris, thank you for your brain and your time on doing a summit too. That takes so much. It takes so much effort, so much dedication, so much time. So thank you for doing this so that you can now hand it over as a gift to everyone. Like, here's 50 different interviews, all together of the top brains in the industry. So I thank you as well.
Including you. So your audience needs to just make sure they attend and see our talk, because that was pretty phenomenal.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for having me today. This was awesome.
Absolutely.